We had never written an A, B sort of melody like that. And I was really pumped about that. I was really pumped. And one thing that was really cool about that song was me and Jess wrote the melody. We sang the melody in front of her fireplace. Da 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 da. And she's like, no, it's not that. It's da 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 da. You know, like, and we finally got it all figured out, and we had like recorded it on an audio memo. And then we like dropped it in to Ableton, and then we started reharmonizing it with all the bossa chords. And that's the fun part. I'm really good at reharmonizing shit.
With all really the what chords? Oh, the bossa nova chords?
Bossa chords, yeah.
Bossa. Okay.
So there's a lot of extensions in those chords. They're very complex chords, you know. You have like, first chord is E minor 9, and then the next chord is E flat dominant 7 sharp 9.
Dang.
So there's like pretty gnarly chords.
Yeah.
And it's really great being able to have an electronic song that's that intense with harmonic content, because you don't really hear it that often.
You're listening to the Freio Music Podcast.
To the Freio Music
Podcast.
I'm Jessica Borth, and I'm part of Spectacle, and what I play in the band is mainly violin, but I also do a bunch of things on synths and some auxiliary instruments that would be just fun added percussion stuff. But yeah, violin is my thing.
I'm Michael. I would say I'm a producer of Spectacle. I do a lot of the DAW work and sampling and sound design, but I also play guitar on stage. That's my main instrument, and as well as keyboard, synthesizer as well.
Nice. Well, we got a lot of instruments between the two of you. So I want to kind of zoom back to your early days and talk a little bit about how you got into music. What was that first instrument that you picked up, or what was it that sparked your curiosity?
All right, this is actually kind of random, but I was thinking about this the other day, and when I was growing up, I was quite like religious. My family was religious, and so they would have songbooks and stuff like that at church, and I would sing songs with them, and on my off time, I would get all of my cousins. I had a lot of cousins and sisters. I would get them all together to try to do like 3 and 4 part harmonies and stuff. Like we would reenact the songbook thing at home, like in the basement or whatever. And that's kind of like where I started to really like collaborating with other musicians, other people, like singing was how it kind of started with me. And then like later on, before I even had a guitar, like when I was 11 and 12, I was pretty inspired by like Dr. Dre and Eminem and stuff like that. That stuff was all coming out. And so I would like beatbox with my middle school, like hacky sack friends, and they would like slang verses over me, like beatboxing. So I think like my mouth was kind of like my first instrument.
That's great.
Please tell me that you have a video of that.
I wish, man. All of the videos were like flip phones, and like it was such bad quality. Remember those little Nokia crappy like Japanese cell phones?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was like
the cell phones before they had color screens. Remember the green ones?
Yeah. I think that they were actually like black and white Palm Pilot.
Oh, okay.
Like no color screens. Yeah. Crazy. We've come a long way in like barely any time, it feels like.
Yeah. So were you able to read music back then when you were doing those harmonies?
Unfortunately not. There was music in the songbooks. But yeah, I never got to really read music until later in life. And, I highly suggest it for people because it's it just makes it so much easier to communicate with other musicians what you want exactly out of a piece or out of a lick or out of a certain section of music. It's a really helpful thing. But it didn't hold me back, just because I couldn't read music.
And so how did you approach it? Was it just by ear and you knew that there was three different...
Yeah, it was all by ear, like grandma had a good voice and she would sing and I would follow grandma, and then grandma, once you had the line down, grandma would do like a harmony, and then that's kind of like how I figured it out,
That's
with
cool.
Harmony. Yeah, melody and harmony.
That's great. And Jessica, what about you? How'd you get introduced to music?
Well, mine's a totally different story. And this is kind of one of the things that I struggled with when I first started in the project with Michael, and that Michael's taught me a lot about. But I was born into the classical realm with everybody in my family playing the violin. And we started violin when we were like 3. And I'm the youngest of 4 violinists. And so my mom is a music school educator and my dad is a tenor. So my entire family was like music. I remember showing up to kindergarten, one of my first times being outside of like the home. And I asked everybody where their violins were because I thought the whole world played violin. Like that is the only thing I knew. All of our outings would be to classical performances or to lessons. And I just didn't know any different. So my upbringing was quite a bit different and very regimented and very much rooted in playing what's on the page, playing it with perfection, never deviating from what's written, posture, etiquette. I mean, it was a totally different upbringing. And, we would do those things that Michael said. We'd sing a lot in church, and my mom being a choral director, we spent a lot of time singing, but there was not any of these like create your own music, creativity and expression that way. It was always just like, who can play it the best perfectly? And that's kind of what that was. But it was a beautiful upbringing. I mean, we had to practice every single day that you eat. That was the motto, like only practice on the days that you eat. And so obviously every day. And even before we would do our chores, our homework, any fun, going to friends' houses, we had to practice first. So music was a forefront and a very huge importance in my family. So a little bit different of an upbringing, I'd say.
Yeah, no kidding. Was music fun as a kid?
Oh yeah. I mean, that was, we were made to practice. There'd be days obviously that didn't want to. But all in all, our like deepest friends were in the music community. The people that you would meet, we'd travel the world, we'd go to camps, we'd perform everywhere, and it was so much fun. It was hard, but it was really fun. So everyone is always worried. They're like, how do your parents made you practice every day? I'm like, yes, but you also brush your teeth every day. And that sometimes is something you don't want to do as a kid. So it was really fun.
That's great. Well, it sounds totally different than anything, than music was for myself, but seems like it was kind of an educational way of discipline and consistency and posture, showing up on time, well dressed.
I mean, definitely. It was so whenever I'm teaching, and we'll probably get into teaching later, but anytime I'm teaching, I always tell my parents of the students that I'm not teaching their kids to play the violin or whatever instrument I'm teaching them, but to be able to accomplish anything they want to in life. So being able to set goals, work through problem areas, not giving up, being really strict and focused. A lot of the things is just learning how to self-discipline and to get rewarded for the hard work you put in.
That's great. So when was the next chapter of music? I know, Jessica, it sounds like you were taking music seriously as a kid. But Michael, when did you start to kind of discover that you could create things not on the page and maybe take it from there and to the next level?
Yeah, no, totally. It started with this music store in Durango called Cats and Music. It's not around anymore, but that's where I went to go try out some of my first guitars. and hopefully, get one under the tree. I always wanted to have some way to record these things, and there was this like Boss multi-track recorder. It was like, no color screen. It was a really tiny screen. It was a 4-track recorder, but I had a microphone on it, and the microphone was pretty good. And I was like, oh, that's what I want. I want that 4-track recorder. And like, didn't get it one Christmas. Next Christmas came by, didn't get it. And then finally, one Christmas, got this multi-track recorder. I think I was like 16, and I just started like recording everything, vocals, harmonies. You could plug in and do electric guitar, you could do bass guitar, but you only had 4 tracks, right? So you just have to like record. And I would like be on the cross trips and showing my friends like all this music that I was creating, and they were like really supportive and like, hey, like you have something really cool, like you should keep recording. And I would record all genres, like folk type styles, alternative rock, like Radiohead-y type stuff, like hip hop, like literally all of the different things. I would record like a little keyboard my brother had, and then guitars. And I think that's why stuck with those instruments in the end, just because like that's where I feel most at home. And I love the process of recording. Like when I sit down with a fresh open Ableton set or DAW, it's just like a empty canvas, and it feels really, it's just like a heartwarming type feeling. Like, yeah, I'm gonna get to create music now for the next how many hours, so that's how it happened for me. But yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
What style of recorder was it? Was it recording digitally or tape?
Yeah, it was a digital. Yeah, it wasn't a tape. It was the Boss multi-track digital recorder.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I love recording as well. And once you record something, it like you discovered as a kid, once somebody has a part, you can build another part. You can add a harmony. You can layer things, and then you're like, oh my God, listen to the radio. Like, it's just a bunch of layers. And
yeah, totally.
Suddenly it's like demystified how things are made. So anyways, that's awesome. And Jessica, what about you? When did you kind of maybe veer from the classical realm into other areas?
Well, it wasn't until I met Michael. So at all, like completely at all. I think, so I had gone through this very regimented life. I knew I wanted to be a concert violinist in an orchestra when I was like 11. And we were practicing like 6 hours a day type of thing all the way through to college. And in college, I suffered a really debilitating arm injury. I had a main nerve that like controls my upwards function in my fingers get compressed by a muscle in my arm to the point where it like stopped firing completely, and I had to completely stop playing the violin and have a bunch of surgeries done and then go through a bunch of rehab and new pathways and brain things. And so I had stopped playing my 3rd year of college because I couldn't do it. My fingers could only move about this fast. They were really slow. And that was a really hard time in my life. That was a whole new way of, violin was the only thing I knew. From 4 years old, you don't even develop your ability to make memories until you're like 6. So I always played the violin. So having that ripped away really was a hard thing I went through, but that's a totally other different story. But what happened is I moved to Colorado from where I was at in Cleveland. I had gone to Cleveland Institute of Music, and I was just living life, not playing music in Colorado. And Colorado's scene in the electronic world, all of a sudden I was getting exposed to these incredible electronic artists and going to my first music festivals and going to my first shows and just being really enthralled with the music. And I was really excited about it. It kind of woken me up because I couldn't really go to see classical music anymore because it was too painful. Like I'd watch someone play the violin and just feel the pain in my arms that would be created if I was playing. And so I had to find a different way to enjoy music, and that was completely jumping out to a different genre. And it wasn't until like 7 years after I stopped playing that Michael and I met, and I'm going to let him tell that story because it's a funny story on how we met. But he brought me back to playing music. And in the beginning, I could only play like 5 minutes to 10 minutes at a time. I mean, he was very patient. I'd just sit in rehearsals and not play, and then play a song once and then sit back down. And over the course of, the 5 years that we've been working together, my arms have come back quite a bit with a lot of strengthening and exercises. And now I can play full sets and go on tour and play show after show after show. But what I do on stage with Spectacle is at a certain technical level that my arms can handle. If I was to play in a classical setting, it'd be a lot more demanding. And so I always say that Spectacle was a way for me to perform as a violinist with the capacity that my arms will allow me at this time in my life. So, but Michael should tell the story about how we met because it's kind of funny. So.
All right. Yeah. Good job, Jess. I'm glad that you found music in a different right. I think that it's really cool. Also, you smash the stage. So even though you're not doing the classical stuff, I can't tell. I whatever she does over there, I'm like, damn. And I know that a lot of the audience members think that too. The violin is just a really incredible instrument because it doesn't have frets, right? So I play guitar and bass guitar, and I don't know if you know this, but you have to have perfect intonation to get the note to sound in pitch, right? So when me and Jess started working together, at first it was just a lot of you're flat or your guitar's out of tune or you're this and that, and which was really good for me because I had never really gotten that, And like the other day I was playing for my friends and my girlfriend, and they were like, oh, you don't just tune by ear? And I'm like, well, I used to tune by ear, but now I just use a tuner because it's just easier for me to know that I'm in tune. But no, how me and Jess met, I was in Boulder, and Boulder's, hoppin' music scene for electronic music. And so I wanted to play in a jam band and a band here and there, but I also wanted to have a electronic project. But I love live instruments. So when I was playing around in the house parties and stuff in Boulder, I went across one of my buddy's houses. He was from Durango as well. He invited me over to play this party, and at this party was some of Jessica's friends, and they said, hey, why don't you come over and play our house party, And so I did. I came over and played their house party as well, and Jessica was like, oh, I have a violin back in the back room. And when she said it like that, I was like, oh God, this is gonna be really bad. She probably just has this one string on it or whatever. And she came back and she had played this song, one of the first recorded songs I had in Ableton. It's called Aurora or Aura. And she slammed it. She sounded so good. It was Emancipator. It was all the things that I had seen at festivals. And I was like, wow, that would be a really cool aspect to bring to the band maybe. And
I'm glad he liked it because I don't remember any of that.
It was a house party.
I was pretty drunk, but
it was a house party. But yeah, it sounded good to me. And so we started doing rehearsal and having shows, and that kind of turned into us having this project, Spectacle, and the rest is history, as they would say. It was really great meeting her, and it was really a nice addition to the project because violin, I feel just fits what we want to do, what we want to capture.
You literally called me the next day. Like at 10 a.m. in the morning, you were really excited. We had barely even woken up from being up all night during this house party, and I get a call, and I don't think I had your number saved. I must have given you mine, and you called and you were like, hey, this is Michael, and I played your house last night and you got your violin out, and do you want to play a show next week? It was like literally, or 2 weeks from then, it was a Halloween show. And you were just like, hey, you want to play a Halloween show in 2 weeks? And I didn't even have the right equipment. I had to borrow a violin from my sister who had a pickup. And we played that random show in the basement of what was that place, Michael?
So that's really cool. That was our first show, and that was the Meadowlark in Denver.
Yeah.
It's
the Meadowlark.
It's in Rhino. Do you know the Meadowlark, man?
It sounds familiar, but I'm not placing it. Do you know what Rough Streets is?
It's right by the Larimer Lounge.
Okay.
It's on the same block as the Larimer Lounge. You like go down into it. It has a really cool patio with outdoor area.
Nice.
But yeah, that's the first like venue spectacle played was Meadowlark.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, no wonder why, Jess, you couldn't tell the story. Wasn't even there.
I was so confused when he called because I didn't even know I had taken it out, and I hadn't played the violin in probably 5 years, and
perfect.
Probably being inebriated made it so I didn't feel the pain that I had in my arms. But it was it's kind of where it all launched. And then what I found was that after like a year of being in the project with Michael, I stopped being able to kind of focus on like corporate America. I was right at that point, I was running a solar company, and all I wanted to do was play music, and it was back in my life, and I couldn't think about spreadsheets anymore. And I wound up quitting after a year and going back into like poor musician mode. So thanks,
Wow.
Michael.
Yeah, poor musician mode. I like that. The things we do for love, right?
Yeah, no kidding. So the music path is obviously such a difficult path, but a rewarding and joyful path if that's what you love doing. What gives you guys the confidence to get out there and dedicate yourselves to this? What was the turning point in your life to make music the forefront? Jessica, you just talked about it a little bit, but Michael, I'm curious. Yeah, keep going. Either.
Yeah,
go ahead,
Michael's
Jess.
might be a little more interesting, so I'm gonna let Michael say it.
Like for me, it's, like I think that, and me and Jess are teachers, and I think that it's really important just to be super encouraging to your students and to your family members and to your friends and to whoever it is who's trying to make music. I think there's so much pressure to be good, so much pressure to be the best, and so much pressure to be successful. And that's not really what it's about. It's not about how successful you are, how many plays you have, or how many people you've performed in front of. What it's about is expressing yourself, And so I just had really, really, really encouraging family. And they would just be like, you can write great songs. And I got told that so much that I just started believing that I could write good songs. And so it wasn't even like a thing that I would think about anymore. It wasn't like, oh, can I write music? If you gave me one microphone and a recording device, I could write something out of it that would sound like good to me. And I think good to some people, I could get people into it, and like, I think it's important to have people be encouraging to their students. Like, I was listening to another podcast about, Victor Woon. He's like a super famous bass guitar player. He was saying that as a kid, he and his brothers were in a band, and they would play, since they were just like, from 3 years and on. And when he was a little kid, he was learning the language of English. He was also learning the language of music. When he went up to the band room, he saw this little crappy Mickey Mouse looking instrument with some fake strings on it, and he knew that was his instrument for him, that he was going to play bass guitar. And so when he started playing with his brothers at first, he wasn't even making sounds. It was just literally something to hold to prepare him to play with his brothers. And I think that it's important to, to give that opportunity for students and to people everywhere. Like if it's your friend producing music, give him the time of the day. Let him listen to some of his beats. And I think it's just good to be encouraging. That's how I found it, was just like lots of encouragement from family and friends. So.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious about your perspective on getting critical feedback as well, and who you seek such feedback from.
I sometimes Michael and I, we're really direct people, and that's kind of why we work well together. So, but not everybody is that direct. So like I have no problem telling Michael when he messed up. And he tells me when I mess up and things like that. And we kind of just understand that we're not attacking each other's like hearts and soul. We're just in it to make it sound as good as it can be. But when it comes to like receiving critical feedback just in life in general, everyone always struggles with that. It's something that I think everybody, wants to say that they accept critical feedback and it doesn't hurt their ego or their skin, and it's just, give it all. But words do hurt still. So everyone, I think, is working through that on a continuous basis. In the classical world, when I was growing up, all it was critical feedback. That's all we would get, because it was whether or not you played it perfect or not. And so I grew a tough skin pretty early on there, but I love getting feedback from our fans. And I love knowing when someone really likes a song or if someone doesn't like a song. And a lot of times Michael and I, when we're drafting songs and we're passionate about them, and we'll send them around to our friends to get some insight on what people are drawn to. And it's really neat to see the difference between so many people. One person will love something and why the other person hates it. And you're never going to please every single person in your entirety. And when you do, those are the special songs that like every single person will love. And there's not that many of those, and that's just for any type of artist across the board. But we love getting feedback from our friends and family, and definitely the fans on the things we're doing.
Yeah, I like, my only one comment on that would be to, being in a good headspace is going to be really great for creative flow and for taking criticism and all that stuff. Like if you're not in a good headspace, you're probably not going to be taking criticism well, and you're probably not going to be giving criticism well. So I would say like it's always better to, whenever you feel good, whatever that might be. For me, it's like a nice long rest and waking up in the morning and make some coffee and then reflect on what you could do better. It's always a morning thing. It's a morning routine for me. So I would say find that good headspace to, accept criticism and really figure out like, who do you want criticism from? And I think that Jess was right in saying like, accept criticism from people you trust want to make the project better or make the song better. People who have a good ear, that you trust have a good ear and understand your genre, like you understand your style of music. I think that's important as well.
Well, you touched on briefly morning routine. I'm curious. Tell me a little bit more about it. How do you get yourself in a good headspace?
Wow.
It's very surprising. Let me just step in here that we're morning people. And most of the time when you talk about bands, they're like, up till, Michael and I, we would start rehearsal at like 8:00 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Like sometimes at 7 a.m. And that's a lot of reason is because we're really fresh and both morning people, but also because we teach late into the evening. So if we did decide to do a rehearsal at night, we'd have to start at 10 p.m. and that would be really late for us. So we've kind of switched to the morning, but it still makes it, we still are able to play shows into the middle of the night and be just fine. But everyone is always kind of shocked when we say we have rehearsal at 7 a.m.
Yeah, well, you're the earliest artist to book on the podcast to date, and usually those slots are, I thought, were reserved for people overseas in different time zones, but no.
Oh my gosh, Jess, maybe we're an anomaly.
Yeah, no, in a good way. In a good way. I do love the mornings for sure.
Morning routine, I don't really have a specific morning routine. I'm so usually fresh in the morning that like anything that I'm like, I need to get this done or I need to tackle this problem, I usually tackle the harder stuff in the mornings, and those are different things all the time. So it could be any number of things, but I always check my calendar and make sure I do, a couple of things like read and set a time for myself to work out later in the day and set a time for myself to practice either keys or guitar or bass. I usually sing and do podcasts in the car since there's a lot of driving in Denver these days, a lot of traffic.
What about you?
I don't really have a morning routine either. I have a hard time with personal care, and normally I just will put my body through hell to get something done. So I definitely need to instill better things like Michael. I try to work out every morning before 8:00, but when it becomes 8:00, I'm on the computer doing emails, doing invoices, writing lesson notes. But I'd like to have more of like a meditation type of.
Yeah,
maybe I'll look into that.
That's difficult. I've been trying to get into that too, and it's like hard to get myself to do it consistently. I do it like it's in the calendar, but I rarely do it.
I know. I get a notification on my phone.
Nice. Yeah, it's in my calendar too. I'm rarely meditating as well, but I did like last year make it over 365 days straight. So
really,
yeah, but
that's
you got to
really
track
cool.
it because otherwise you're just like, oh damn, I missed a day, and then there goes the streak, but it gives me a number on the streak. So there's a nice app that I use to kind of track it, which was helpful.
Wow.
And then the rule was like, if I'm like not feeling it, I can get up and just call it a day. Like I don't have to sit there the whole duration, whatever it was, 15 minutes or 10 minutes. But I had to sit there for a little bit. And then if I'm just like really pissed, I'm like, all right, I'm done. So anyways, it works.
Well, that's inspiring, man.
It's
You're
possible.
inspiring us.
It's possible. But you guys are crushing it in the mornings. I'm impressed. What do you like to read, Michael?
I like to read newsletters. I get a lot of newsletters. And then from those newsletters,
what style or like what information do you like to take in?
Usually it's like self-help or meditative, or I get some things on like SpaceX's program and Tesla. I'm invested in Tesla, and my aunt has a Tesla, and I'm concerned about the environment, and so I'm interested in both aspects of our escape plan, whether it's saving Mother Earth, which I think is really important, electric vehicles, carbon emissions, and then or escape Mother Earth, which is like the SpaceX program. And a lot of people think that that's a very political thing to talk about. A lot of people are like, no, Mother Earth, and are pissed at the other people, and then the other people are like, no, we need a plan B to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
So it's like so interesting to me. I don't have a one way or the other way. I think that both things should be, I think we should be working at both things, to save our species, the human race.
Yeah. Well, as Elon said, like, there's going to be an extinction event. It's inevitable. Like there's things flying around space, but like when is it going to happen?
Probability.
Yeah. So he was just saying like it's going to happen. So either we have no hope or we open a door, and might as well open that door. And Jess, you were working in solar, so that's pretty aligned with the reduction of carbon emissions as well.
Both Michael and I are pretty invested in the news and what's going on in the world, and we're not going to dive into like political side of things, but definitely both Michael and I have a forefront when it comes to that. And for a while there, I ran a music nonprofit called Musical Activist Alliance with a bunch of artists back in Boulder. And we would put on festivals and events all about sustainability. And we'd always try to empower other artists to give a platform about those items to their audience. So it's definitely something that we feel pretty passionate about. But it also is it can feel very hopeless, just being one person. So we always encourage our friends and our family members to, join an organization that they can feel like they're part of a collective consciousness that's working towards it, instead of just a one person trying to do their part, so that they don't feel like what they're doing doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, I don't read all of that stuff that Michael does in the morning. I would normally get it through audio, so I don't do much reading. I listen to a lot of podcasts or short YouTube clips on science discoveries and things like that.
Cool. It's so great how many different avenues of learning there are these days. You mentioned it. I also consume so much through my ears. Like I say it's reading, but really I just listen to books. A few kind of follow-up questions on this trajectory, and that is, how do you use your music as a platform for expressing ideas or impacting others? And do you see music as a tool to impact others?
That's a really good question. I think that, provoking emotion is one of the main goals in writing a piece of music. And I'm a very setting type person, and I'm a very seasonal type person.
What do you mean by setting? What do you mean setting type?
So we did a song called Dreaming of Brazil. And it was because I was on the beach in the summertime, hanging out in the trees by some water, and I wrote this song, and it was inspired by this music that I used to study in college, and I never had got to do an electronic song like that. But when you listen to the song, it's totally left field for a spectacle song. And to reiterate on that setting thing, we named our first album Destination because we felt like we were combining a lot of world sounds, percussion, violin, guitar, horns. We use a lot of horns in our music in the first album, and I think that a lot of that was because as a writer, I'm always trying to provoke an image. I'm a very image type musical composer. I've loved movies. I love Hans Zimmer. I love, Prince of Egypt. There's certain Gladiator. There's certain songs that you hear the song and you close your eyes and you see the image and you open your eyes and it's that, scene in Gladiator where he has his hands on the wheat fields, and that's the kind of writer that I am, and you can really get that done in instrumental music without lyrics. But as we go forward and start working with these lyricists, it's been really fun talking to them about the setting, talking to them about the feeling, and then them being well, why don't we try to tackle this concept? And we worked with someone, his name is Jay Rydell. He's a friend and partner, and we wrote a song with him called Levitate.
Levitate. That's one of my favorites.
Tell me what you want, I got everything that you really need. Don't need that. Bruises in the head, ayy. Don't need that. Don't need that. I'll show you how to levitate.
there's a concept of feeling stuck in a rut, in a rift, you know, and being able to get yourself above that, you know, through finding your zone. You know, like a lot of people love biking, a lot of people love painting, but I love music. And when I sit at the piano and I just play some chords and I get into the zone, it's almost meditative. It's like you're kind of like losing yourself in that moment just for that second, and nothing really else, nothing matters in that moment except for you and the piano or whatever instrument you're playing. So that's what the song is about. It's about all the troubles, you know, in life with this character struggling with, and then he's levitating out with music, dancing, creating, jamming, you know.
You know, we have fans that have all different types of beliefs, and you know, sometimes I can agree or disagree with someone's beliefs, but it's still their beliefs. And we try to make it more about what we can convey in our music than about just putting out stories that discount other people's beliefs. So we try to steer more towards the music on our social platforms than the political and fields of what's happening. However, we will, you know, help support good causes. So, you know, relief funds for the disasters that are just occurred with the hurricanes, helping direct people to where they can donate for, you know, the Afghanis, any world things. We do try to like help push fans to a place where they can find more information. But yeah, it's more about the music and what we create inside of someone while they listen to what we're performing. And we really, after we perform a show, the people that come up and they tell us they're so happy. I've never seen people so happy. Their eyes are huge and their body, they're just the happiest they've ever been. And they say thank you so much for waking us up in that way. And they just, it really helps people just all together come up in a higher resonating frequency.
Michael, you touched on two songs that I actually wanted to talk about anyway. So if we could dive into those a little bit more.
Yeah.
Dreaming of Brazil was one of them. And first of all, I love that album cover and that song. But did you have,
cool.
How did the album cover come to be? Speaking of images.
Wow. You know, I was opening my mind one night. And I had this image that I found through scrolling. Sometimes when you're scrolling, it's a really bad thing and can cause a lot of negative emotions when you're on your phone and you're looking at everything that is the world on social media. But every once in a while, you find some cool ass shit. And that's when I found an image of, I think it was like some guy like laying on it was like a sauna or something like that. And I looked outside, it looked like he was in this tree. And I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. Why don't we have like a canopy, like treehouse? So then I started looking at canopy treehouses on Google search and looking around, and I found that image of this like unreal looking canopy tree house thing. And I was like, yo, if I owned an Airbnb like that in the jungle, like that's the one. You know, and like there was like two lovebirds like chilling on the patio, and like I was like, that's the artwork, you know. Dreaming of Brazil, it's like that's where I see myself hanging out, writing music in this treehouse. So we, you know, put that all into Photoshop together, and it was like me and my roommate and one of our friends, the artist who did Levitate as well. And he kind of like was messing with some of this color paint sort of thing. And that was the vibe that we went for on our first album, was everything looking like pretty like illustrated, you know. We really liked that branding and that vibe, that illustrated vibe. So the oil paint was like, turned it into that. And, you know, we kind of just like put it on a black background and brought it out. And yeah, that's how that artwork came to be. Do you think we should put it on a t-shirt?
Ooh. With the text or without the text on the front?
Without the text, probably.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
But you know, when it comes to like the development of that song, the track itself, bossa nova music. So in traditional electronic music, and this is broken all the time, and it's being broken much more often, but typically you have 3 to 4 chords that just repeat themselves. And then you might have a drop that has those chords, or you might have a drop that just has 1 chord, but it's really minimal to about like 3 to 4 chords that are just repeated every 4 bars type of thing, or very structured. Bossa nova, on the other hand, and this is the Brazilian type of music that Michael had studied in college, and Brazil is somewhere we would love to go visit as a duo so that we could really immerse ourselves in this writing style. But bossa nova incorporates a lot more chords. And when Michael and I were writing these chords, this was one of those 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night meetings up in my mountain home, pretty far away. But I think there's 13 chords in that chord structure. Michael, how many chords? I mean, it's like it takes you through like 13 chords before the drop. It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's not a little bit, for sure.
And are all those 13 getting rotated through in a given section? Like a verse?
It's like a full chord. I should say a chord progression.
Uh-huh.
A lot of times the chord progression.
So bossa nova is a style of jazz music. So like during jazz music becoming the forefront of American culture, during that same time, jazz music was happening in Brazil, and bossa nova was one of the styles of jazz music. So it's a A sort of section. There is a C section in it as well. But the A structure has a bunch of chords and the B structure has a bunch of chords. So, that's how that one went down. But like, we had never written an A-B sort of melody like that. And I was really pumped about that. I was really pumped. And one thing that was really cool about that song was me and Jess wrote the melody. We sang the melody in front of her fireplace. Da 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 da. And she's like, "No, it's not that. It's da 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 da." You know, like, and we finally got it all figured out, and we had like recorded it on an audio memo, and then we like dropped it in to Ableton, and then we started reharmonizing it with all the bossa chords, and that's the fun part. I'm really good at reharmonizing shit.
With all really the what chords? Oh, the bossa nova chords?
Bossa chords, yeah.
Bossa. Okay.
So there's a lot of extensions in those chords. They're very complex chords, you know. You have like, first chord is E minor 9, and then the next chord is E flat dominant 7 sharp 9.
Dang.
So there's like pretty gnarly chords. Yeah. And it's really great being able to have an electronic song that's that intense with harmonic content, because you don't really hear it that often, you know?
So Michael, I was just going to ask, like, to get context on how you're able to wrangle all these wild chords together. When did you start picking up music theory? Was that in college?
Okay. Yeah. That's a really great question. So I had no idea what I was doing with music. I would just write kind of like 3 to 4 chord progressions for a long time. And I got all of those from like Ultimate Guitar Tab or learning a song from someone else or whatever it was. I never really understood jazz music, and I never heard Miles Davis or John Coltrane until the year before me and Jess met, actually. So I had no jazz background at all. And I went to University of Colorado, Denver, and the program there is a jazz program. Well, I auditioned. They were not down. They were like, you aren't going to make it here. You're not, there's no way that you're going to be able to survive. So like I went to the school. I actually went to Metro, did classical music, and I learned a little bit about reading music, but I really wanted to get into the jazz program, because it was so intriguing and so interesting sounding.
And they told you couldn't do it.
They told me I couldn't do it, so I waited a whole year doing classical music, classical guitar, nylon guitar, and then I re-auditioned. I did Autumn Leaves as a chord melody. They really liked that, and then I learned Misty as another chord melody, and they really, really liked that one. Chord melody is when you have the melody on the top of the chord that you're playing. So it's kind of like something you can do as
like
a solo guitar
picking?
player. Finger picking, yeah.
Okay.
And it doesn't have like a steady tempo. It's kind of more like free form tempo, like free tempo. So I got in. I was so pumped that I got in, and then it kicked my ass for sure. Like by the third semester, I was like, why did I do this? It's so hard and it's so complex. It was like too much, but I did get out of it what I wanted. And what I wanted was to learn how to play all those fucking jazz chords that hip hop artists have, like I would listen to Ice Cube and I would be like, what is that sick soul R&B, style, and then later on, like neo soul came out and, all these new genres that were all jazzy. And so I aced music theory because that's what I wanted, as far as like other styles of jazz, like jazz improv, I think I got like I tried really hard and I got like a B. I got a B minus. It's hard. It's hard music. I think I like look up to those type of people so much, and that's part of the reason why we have horn players. Dreaming of Brazil has one of the most incredible sax players, David Berno, and one of the most incredible trumpet players, Dylan Vessel, and they both went to DU. And you can imagine, like, UC Denver was hard at jazz. DU is like the epitome of the best people that go and study jazz music there at DU. So, yeah, I was really glad to do the Dreaming of Brazil song, and I was really glad to work with people who were that good at jazz, and that's where I found it, is University of Colorado, Denver.
Nice.
I did a minor in jazz theory and guitar, so it was just 4 semesters. So a little.
I didn't know any of this, Michael. I didn't know. That's cool.
But yeah, that's how I found it.
Cool. Well, I appreciate the context, but yeah, so the song is very complex. And then, Jessica, I'm curious, when did you learn written notation?
Oh, well, there's a difference between there's a huge difference between just reading a note on the page and then reading chord symbols,
like what Michael was talking about with the complex chords.
The violin is not a chordal instrument, so for guitar, you're learning a chord. You're playing all the notes at the same time, 4 notes at a time, 5 notes, whatever it is, and you're learning chords. So you would have a chord sheet and it would say, G minor, 5, all that stuff. But since violin is not a chordal instrument and it's just like typically a solo line, I mean, you can do chords. We do fugues that Bach had written and things like that, but I still don't understand the music theory side of chords. Like Michael will be like, he'll tell me chords and I can play them on the piano to some extent. But like if he starts talking about, sharp 9 or the added extra things on top of a just root chord, I'm kind of lost. It's not something I ever studied. When you talk about when did I start reading notation, I mean, 5.
Wow.
You learn it. I mean, the first year you play your violin, you do it all by ear, but immediately you start learning music.
Yeah.
It's just like reading.
Yeah, and I think that sheet music is so important for horn players and vocalists and violin because it's mainly a monophonic instrument. And, reading a chord chart, that's not the forefront of the instrument on sax or on violin,
You know what's really interesting though is that, and I can still find my like journals or my notebooks. So when Michael and I first started working together, all I had known was this like written form of music. You play what's written on the page. You don't just make it up. It's not improv. That in rehearsals, I would bring a notebook that would have staff paper and I would write with like quarter notes and eighth notes and slurs. I would write everything in that I was supposed to play on a song. And if Michael, being the composer he is, the next rehearsal be like, oh, I don't like that. Let's change it to this. I would like put my foot down and say, no, this is how you told me to learn it the first time. I'm never going to play it a different way. This is exactly what it has to be. Why are you changing this? And they used to joke and call me the machine in rehearsal because I could only produce what was told for me to play. And over the course of these 5 years, that's not at all who I am anymore. I don't write anything down. It's all done by ear. It's all what I feel at the moment. There's sometimes, there's a different project I play in sometimes from Manchester when they come over on tour and I don't have a single part. And for 2 hours, I will just improvise the entire 2 hours every night after night on tour. And it's really neat to kind of not be chained to notation, still be able to read it, but to be able to do something different. And so, yeah, that's just a little bit about the written notes.
And what was it that kind of opened your mind to break free, so to speak, from the page, break free from the notes and start feeling and not knowing 5 notes ahead, maybe, or where you're going to be later?
Well, one, Michael changes things a lot. So I just have to know that it's not going to be the same thing twice. No, I'm kidding, Michael. You're great. But just gaining confidence that that's okay to do something different each time. Just practice, confidence, and not, there was a lot of nerves in the beginning with hardware. I was always afraid my computer would blow up on stage or like my chords wouldn't work or my sound wasn't coming out. And once I figured out how those things work, I didn't have that nervous energy and I could kind of just let my heart open up a little bit more. But most of that came from, and I know I keep putting Michael on like a pedestal, but he really taught me a lot about how to let go and how to go with the flow and how to change things and how sometimes when we would meet up, we might spend 4 hours writing music and everything we write might be bad. It doesn't have to be right every time. Maybe we'll write a song and we'll throw it away. Everything that we do doesn't have to be a long-lasting perfection ride all the time. So it taught me a lot.
Yeah.
That.
I think in the same realm, Jess taught me how important it is to hit important emotional functions and sections. If you write something that's good, then play it that way. Improvisation is one of the best compositional features because you're basically taking an emotion that you had and you're duplicating it, you're replicating it again, and we've had this going for a while, and some of the things, some of the stories, some of the drama, we try to replicate it pretty close to what it was the first time that we wrote that section of music, But yeah, there is spots in our music that are that are meant for vibe and for improvisation, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's great. And Jessica, props for being able to break free and to enter this new area. You know, you didn't do it as a kid, you did it as an adult. So it's not easy to have a pliable mind and to be able to rethink how to play something that you're so familiar with. So I could talk to you guys all day about a lot of things, but I'm going to switch gears a little bit to the electronic realm. And I'm curious, some of your favorite production techniques, tools, and strategies. So, Michael, I don't know if you want to talk about maybe some of your favorite VSTs, if you had that blank slate that you so eloquently talked about on Ableton. What would some of maybe your first instruments or first ideas, or where do you start? Do you start on the beat, chords, melody?
Yeah, no, it's a really great question. I think that I write in a lot of different ways. In music class, we were taught to do copycat projects. Basically, I did for my star project that everyone really liked. I did "Get Lucky" by Daft Punk. So I recreated the whole song. I did the drums. I re-recorded the guitar. I sang the song. I played the bass guitar part. I did the whole song. And then that's only half the battle. The next half is, how does the snare sound? How does the kick sound? Is that the right effect on the guitar part? Is that the right EQ for this style of bass?
The vocoder.
You know, the vocoder, the techniques and the hardware, the equipment that they're using, you know? And that was like the one critique I got from my professor, like, oh, the guitar part sounds not right. And I was like, oh, come on, give me a break. This was so much work, you know? But later on, I was like, you know what? I should have used like the neck pickup and used it out of a tweed amp. And, you know, there's techniques that you learn from doing the copycat stuff. And it's the same thing in electronic music. When you want to recreate a sound, I think the best way to do is to drop the song in Ableton and really listen to, kind of break it down, throw an EQ on it, listen to like what's happening in the high end, what's happening in the mid range, what's happening in the low end. And then if you understand synthesis, I don't think that the plugin is really that important, because you can go in and recreate pretty much any sound in any plugin, as long as it's not trash. Obviously, analog synths are going to sound, you know, the best, the warmest. But I think if you understand a little bit about sound design, you can get like pretty close to making any sound you want in any DAW. The plugins I like to use right now for synthesis is like, I love using Anna 2 right now. It's a really good one. I like using Silent, and I like using Serum, and you know, pretty much all of Ableton's stock stuff is great. Well, it's not great. It's just, it's good enough. I know how to use it where.
Yeah.
I know how to use it where, you know.
Okay.
I get most of my drum samples from recording them with a microphone.
Beatboxing them.
Or
Beatboxing them, right?
from Splice. I think using Splice is a really great way to impact your knowledge of sound design, you know. And getting experimental with sample searching, I think, is important. So if you hate psytrance, doesn't mean you can't go through some of the psytrance samples and slow them to halftime and use some of those elements as textures, because that shit sounds great in halftime over bass music. You know, some of that like acidy, arpeggiated psytrance stuff, if you slow that stuff down, it sounds epic in a bass song, you know? That's like where I got our main pluck thing from Breathe, you know? We had this song called Breathe coming out soon. was like literally from a trance, like side trance sample, you know, and I like isolated the one pluck note and then put that in into the sampler, and Ableton is awesome. Simpler and sampler is awesome. You can just create anything you want from audio tracks. But yeah, I think that explains most of it, right?
Yeah, no, those are great hacks. I didn't ever think about grabbing something, a sample, half timing it, making it like a underlayer or a texture, as you said. That's a cool hack. Cool hack.
Yeah.
I think other people might find that valuable. What purchase for under $100 have you made in the last 6 months that's most improved your life? Music related or not?
Me or Jess?
Both.
In the past 6 months.
Under $100.
I want it to be good, you know. I'm trying to think of the good shit.
I know. I'm thinking like nothing's
doesn't have to be
inflation
deep. It doesn't have
right
to be
now. I mean, nothing's under $100. I feel like everything is $100. I did get.
You know what?
I did get married. I did throw an epically way too expensive wedding.
Actually, no. That was
But I guess, you know, my husband got me this really cool piece of a really cool pedal for Christmas. So I guess that almost is 6 months ago.
Nice.
That was a little over. It was over $100, but less than $3.
What pedal?
And
or what?
I'll grab it.
Effect?
So I'm really excited
To start using this pedal.
Nice.
In our project.
For anybody not
it's just
watching, it was a harmonics voice.
Yeah, it's an electro harmonics voice box.
Thank you.
And I've been trying to experiment it with my violin going through as well as my voice. We've been trying to incorporate vocals more into our setup, not just working with singers, but also Michael and I trying to gain confidence in our own voice on stage and maybe bringing that element. So trying to work with this would be really fun in our next couple live shows. But yeah, I guess that's a purchase that was made that is fun to talk about.
All right, so this thing we bought, it's like $110, but this thing has been like a game changer. So it's basically, it's called the Comica Comica AD3. Okay, it's basically a interface. You can plug two mics, phantom power in it, or a guitar amp, right? Just straight in DI, you can get all the guitar, and you can do, you know, mic in one, or you could do stereo out of your Ableton into the device. On the other side, it has, you know, one of these, which you can plug right into your camera. So you can get high quality audio, and it syncs straight to the video. You don't have to go back into Premiere and re-line it up. Well, here's the fucking awesome thing about it is if you put a dongle on this thing, you can plug it right into your phone and get like high quality, you know.
Oh, wow. So it makes your phone the recording device, but you're bringing in XLR cables into your phone.
Yeah, so like
so
TikTok,
all of our
you can have
TikTok
good
videos
sound.
and all of the
That's cool.
Instagram videos and stuff like that, I just dragged the video into Ableton and it already has good sound. So maybe like, you know, one of the layers is guitar and the other one is a drum set. Well, I can go, you know, high quality guitar and high quality drum set, and then, you know, maybe do some slight EQ in Ableton and then export the video out on Ableton and just, you know, go right into TikTok from my phone, like via Google Drive.
Nice.
So, or if you just want to just, you know, have nice sounding
audio in the camera.
Yeah, audio in the camera, like just like a solo piece, like if Jess was just performing violin solo. So this thing has been pretty awesome for that.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, I appreciate both of those items. When you are looking back at your trajectory, what was a major, like a victory or a major defeat that perhaps set you up for victory in the future?
Oh, could be so many things, Jess.
Well,
which one should I do? Victory and you do defeat?
Michael and I just had a very epic performance on a main stage at a music festival with thousands and thousands of people, and was received really well. And I feel like that
It's a victory.
is a victory. You know, we hadn't played a live show other than maybe a backyard barbecue party in over a year because of COVID. And that was our first show live. And it is a show that I don't know. I mean, it was just fantastic, and it was amazing, and it was inspiring, and it was beautiful. And it was a set that we had first initially started writing for a Beats Antique show that was going to happen earlier in the year that got canceled.
I like where this is going.
And you know, being able to perform that set that we had started like 6 months prior it was a huge victory for us. And I mean, you can play some of the footage from it. It's just was beautiful and made us feel it was a great reintroduction into live performance after such a long time.
The defeat, was, COVID was hard, and we're trying to figure out everything with, being like pretty young artist and having this affect us in such a hardcore way is difficult, because when you're building hype around your project and your brand and you're getting people excited, it takes a lot of energy to get everyone in one place, and we're doing that. We're pretty good at it. Jess and I are really great at bringing people together in the best way that we can. And then we had this like huge halt, and when the Beats Antique show came up, we were so excited to finally play, and it was for like one of a huge inspiring artists on our music. We love Zoe and David. They're really great people, and we really wanted to play the show. Well, it was just too soon to announce that show, so it was a pretty big defeat when they called us and said, hey, like, we're not doing the show anymore. Like, we can't pull it off with the city and the vaccine card. The vaccine hadn't fully hit. It was in March. And so me and Jess were like, kind of like, damn, that's, that really sucks. We're not going to be able to do that. And that defeat led to what Jess was talking about with this other festival, where we got to play that Beats Antique set that we wrote, and we changed it a little bit, obviously, fine-tuned. But yeah, I think that like, because we had more time with it too, the set turned out better. But yeah, that festival was just good vibes. It was a good performance, good people, great stage, great employees. Nice weather.
It's Shangri-La, by the way. We're talking about Shangri-La up in Minnesota. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, we actually met the singer of Breathe there. She sang the intro. Her name's Homa. But yeah, we that is one defeat that we had recently that turned into a victory later on.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I appreciate you sharing, and I know so many other musicians are going through similar difficulties. And
don't give up, everyone.
Yeah, no kidding. We're almost there. I feel it. So when both of you are educators, what characteristics do you look for in, a standout student, or what characteristics, if you could instill something into another human to make them a great musician, what aspects of would you choose? So would it be like discipline to show up every day and play, or would it be, more creativity? How would you approach kind of trying to help another musician?
I think Michael touched on this a little bit earlier when it was talking about, very supportive and encouraging people around you, like your family and your teachers. That's pretty much, I think, but what both Michael and I really do in our lessons with students. There's not, I teach a multitude of different types of instruments, and a student might love music and be pretty comparable at it, but they won't go into it as a profession. But that's okay, because it's not about being the best. It's about the journey and learning music and tapping into that side of your brain. So I think that the biggest thing I want my students to feel when they come into my lessons is, one, that they're going to have the best time that they've had all week. And I get a lot of feedback from parents that say when their kid leaves, they're the happiest they've ever been the whole week. I act really silly in my lessons. The kids are laughing quite a bit all the time. I mean, we have a good time. Yeah, I mean, Michael's just a goofball over there, so he's always those kids. So I just love that kid, Michael, the one that in that band that you have, the one that made the comment about me when I put that poem up on Instagram. What's that kid's name?
That was the harder children who are getting to gaslight everyone because they're teenagers.
They're becoming teenagers. But yeah, just in general, when we talk about like helping kids, I just want them to love music. And if they didn't practice, I'm going to tell them, hey, my time's valuable. Your time's valuable. I'm not going to make you practice. You need to put that dedication in, but I'm not going to send them away from my door. I'm not going to shut the door and say, you have to go home and practice. I'm not teaching you. I'll still find something that they can learn, even if they didn't practice the material that we worked on the week before, because maybe it'll be spent more on just different aspects of the music that didn't require you to practice. So just encouraging happiness, love for the music. I never want a student to cry. I've cried many times in lessons when I was little. I had some hard teachers, and I don't want that for my students. So,
yeah, I would say just to kind of wrap that up, for adults who are learning, it's never too late to pick up an instrument. And when you're learning, maybe you get to that next level and you get to play some really awesome artists, and you're writing or jamming, improvising. Maybe you're in a jam band, maybe you're an electronic artist, but I think what makes a better musician is just listening. Okay, like if you can truly listen to the collaborator, what they want and what they need, or if you're jamming with a band and you can listen to the other members of the band, leave proper space, I think that's just right off the bat going to make you more incredible. Because you're not playing just to play. You're not playing over everyone else. You're speaking a language with other people. And that requires listening. You have to be a good listener to be a good musician, I think.
Well said. Well said. What advice would you give to a musician starting out today? Just a young kid listening, so you don't have like one-on-one contact with them to try and help them. What advice would you give them based on what you've learned?
For me, I think that having some pretty realistic short-term goals are really important. Write the music, decide how you're going to brand the music based on what the music needs. Do things more for the music purposes. And then when you get to releasing stuff, have a dedicated schedule. And that goes with practicing and creating music. But it's a lot of it is a numbers game, so just, put out the best music that you can put out and do it in a somewhat timeline and just really try to stick to that timeline. And you'll notice that you'll start seeing a lot better traction once you do that.
Yeah, we're not very good with timelines. That's why Michael's saying stick to the timeline.
Yeah, but we push ourselves very hard. We do more than just write music. We do management and branding and music videos and right. Me and Jess we do it all. So I think we can give ourselves a little bit of a break on the timeline.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
But I guess for me, it's Michael did just mention it is a numbers game. It is, and that's unfortunate. It's a different time. It's go for something that you feel like is going to last and not just the one-off viral video. So if we live in a world where now on, let's say on TikTok, a video can, go viral with millions. And the next week, that same person on that video might not even be remembered at all. And so numbers they're important, but they are not who make you the artist. And so to just remember that it's not about the amount of likes and the clicks that you're getting, it's on whether or not you're happy with what you put out. Because if you believe in the music, most chances someone else will too. And it'll be a long lasting effect. It won't be a one-off. It'll last a lifetime and hopefully beyond. So just do what you feel you believe in.
Nice. Well, I think that's a great message, especially for today and the kids all on social media, looking at the numbers, the likes, the followers, the retweets or whatever. I don't even know what it is on TikTok. I feel old. I'm not even on it, but you guys do. But anyways, what are you into outside of music? So what's like a fun thing that you are passionate about or excited about having nothing to do with music?
Me and Jess love hiking. We just went on a hike together. So exciting.
We didn't get very far.
We didn't get very far because it's like wet and all that.
It was like a bog. It was like a bog.
We tried our best.
The water was up to like our knees.
I love heights. I love rock climbing. I love being in.
Love heights. I've never heard anybody say that.
Yeah, I free soloed the Flatirons.
Wow.
A couple times. There's some like rush that I get from it, but recently I got like kind of in a situation that didn't make me feel too comfortable, and that's when I was like, okay, I'm good on that. But I like that feeling you get, that rush, like I love snowboarding, and Jess is a skier, I think we love the outdoors. You're not a skier. I thought you skied for a while. I can't
ski worth shit. I mean, I do. I like drinking a hot toddy in the place watching them ski.
At the bottom of the hill.
No, I love skiing. I tore both my ACLs when I was young, so skiing is really hard on them. So I normally am only able to do like a couple runs, and then I have to like sit and wait for the day to end with the others I go with. But yeah, Michael and I mean, we live in Colorado, so I mean, you're in the mountains. The mountains is key. Always being outside. I'm a huge outdoors person, like all the time. If I am inside, I'm going to be working. I'll be on my computer. I'll be working on music. I'll be doing something. I can't just be inside and not do something. So the only time I can remove myself from work or doing things that are not just for pleasure is I have to be outside, because you'll take me away from the screens and all the things that need to get done. So anything outdoors, I thoroughly enjoy. I love going to museums. I'm really excited to go to Meow Wolf on October 8th and see what's going on there. I'm going to go do the exhibit.
I love art and museums and architecture. Like we just played a show in Minnesota, and I was in Minneapolis on Labor Day. Well, everyone in Minnesota during Labor Day, they go to their cabins. So it was super bizarre. It was like me standing. I have this picture of me standing, and it's just like this huge, sick architecture city, and it's just me and like one other homeless person. That's it. Everyone else is in the city is gone. So that was that was cool. I love seeing architecture in big cities. I can't wait to get back down to Latin America and see the jungles. Hopefully me and Jess can play in Vision. It's an electronic festival in Costa Rica. That's a big one that I want to cross off my list, as well as like Burning Man. I love traveling to these festivals and hanging out. So
that's great. So for people listening, if they don't already know you, what are the best links? What are the best platforms that they could reach out and follow and learn more about you?
Well, you can go.
It's cool. I've talked enough.
Well, I was just going to say, one thing is that the word spectacle is used to describe a lot of different things. So if you're ever looking for our music, make sure you put the word music after the word spectacle, and then we'll come up. It's very simple to just put spectacle and not be able to find it. So always add music at the end of what you're looking for. But for Instagram is great. We post a lot of information about releases and short videos and just what's going on in our lives. And that would be at spectacle.music is our handle there. Facebook is still a relevant platform, so you could always check us out there. But when it comes to the music, we're on everything. You're on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. We've got a really cool music video coming out, so definitely check out our YouTube channel and like and subscribe. But Michael, what am I missing?
That's it. If you search Spectacle Music, SPECTACLE, in Google, you'll find us. We're out there.
That's great. Well, the last question is for you both. It's open-ended. Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
We're just really thankful you asked us to be on your podcast. We're excited.
Thank you so
a lot
much.
of the people that you've highlighted already are good friends of ours or that we know in the music community. And when we saw those on your roster, we thought, hey, this guy is choosing some people that we are, one, inspired by, and two, look up to. And to be on that roster means a lot to us, and to get the chance to just talk to you. So thank you very much for having us.
Great. Well, thank you both. Really appreciate you being on the show, sharing your time with me and everybody, and putting your music out there. I really appreciate your music. I've seen you live. You bring such great energy that I had to learn more, and so glad that we can check this one off the list and that we got you on the show. So.
Yeah, I really appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Breathe.
Listening to the Freio Music Podcast with Michael Mahan. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single episode. And don't forget to share this podcast everywhere. Thanks for listening, and until next time, stay tuned.
Freio Music, Freio Music, Freio Music, Freio Music. You are listening to Freio Music.